Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfeigned the podcast. I'm Jay. I'll be your host. And on this episode, I want to talk about two thoughts that I've had today. And before we dive in to this episode, I just want to share that if you hear some noise or whatever, I'm outside, I'm taking a walk. It's actually a beautiful day. And I love this time because, the sun's still out, but it's getting ready to go down. And right now it's like blue skies, the temperature's nice, it's a slight breeze. It's like a perfect evening for a walk. And so if you hear some extra kind of noise or whatever, um, just kind of stay with me, bear with me. You might hear some cars and some animals or whatnot. But so I had two thoughts today. First one, I guess, is a bit emotional, but in the spirit of being transparent and vulnerable, just figured I'd share. And this isn't necessarily, a lesson from my story, although it's, part of my story. My life is my story, but maybe just a moment of vulnerability, moment of transparency. And the thought was this. So you see these reels going around, and maybe you've seen a reel about this, but I was going through some old pictures, and I do that from time to time. Sometimes I'll go, through Google Photos, and I could search for my kids, and I'll look on a hard drive or something like that and just look at old pictures, right? And it's obviously like super emotional, super nostalgic, and you just start to remember, days gone by. And some pictures depict very specific scenes that were a part of our life, and I can vividly remember whatever it was we were doing or what we were experiencing. And then other pictures are just sort of a captured moment in time. And I don't necessarily know where we were or what we were doing, but every time I look at these pictures, it's always emotional. And it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. And just to give you a quick preface of how I got to where I'm at.
And I hate to see anybody walk straight.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I live right up there. I'm just going for a walk. So, yeah, I appreciate it though, man. Thank you.
That was awesome. So I'm taking a walk. That was actually really cool. I love that. There's things like that. When that happens, it gives you hope for humanity. And yeah, it's fine anyway. I just think that was awesome. So I'm walking on this stretch of road that's a pretty long stretch of road, basically through the woods, I guess. You're surrounded by woods, and there's some houses here and there, but it's a long stretch, and it's kind of a connector road. And it's not necessarily a road that people go walking on. And so, cars pass and whatever. And so this car just stopped and said he was going to the interstate. And he said, I hate to see anybody walking that might need a ride. So I thought that was cool, right? There's that part of me. Oh, that dude was flying. And the other part of me is like, like serial killer pulling up to try to kidnap us. But what are they gonna do to me? So anyway, and the thought went through my mind, like, to pause this episode and maybe even to take this out, but I don't know. I think it fits on this episode. So back to my thought. So I'm looking through these pictures, and it's extremely emotional, a bit of emotional roller coaster because, it's happy, then it's sad. And then you start to think about your kids growing up. And I have a 21-year-old son, a 17-year-old daughter, and an 8-year-old son. And if I'm being honest, a lot of times it feels like it was just yesterday that, I'm rocking my oldest to sleep, right? Or we're walking and he has to reach up to grab my hand. It feels like just the other day that my daughter was dancing in the living room, right? And getting frustrated when we changed the music. And just feels like not too long ago that I'm holding my little one and putting him to sleep, and you know, reading to him when he's in his bunk bed, or and you just look at these pictures and they grow up so fast and time goes by so fast, and you hear these things like time is undefeated and father time's undefeated, and it just goes by so fast. And I guess every time I look at these pictures and I take this proverbial trip down memory lane, I always start to think about the times missed. Listen, we had a lot of good time, a lot of good memories. As life would have it, there were some challenges and some bad times, but we've had some really good times. There's some awesome memories. But it's inevitable that I think about what I could have done better, what I could have done more of, what I failed to do, or missed opportunities, or missed times to make memories, or whatever. And so it becomes a bit emotional for me. And then here's the thought that came through my mind, and this wrecked me. But I thought, there came a day where it was the last time I would do something with them. It was the last time that I would pick them up to get them out of the car because they had fallen asleep. It's the last time I'd bounce them on my knee, or rock them, or dance with them to help them fall asleep. It was the last time that I would pick them up to hold them. It was the last time I would put them down. And so your mind goes through all of these things, and you think of all the lasts, everything that would be the last time you do that. And I don't know, it wrecked me. And I don't really have a challenge for us. I guess if I was going to give any kind of advice to that for any of you who have kids younger than mine, or kids in the same age, or whatever, it would be to try your best. We're not perfect. The things are going to slip by. But try your best to seize every opportunity, every moment. Make memories with your kids. Make the most of the moments that you have with them. Work will be there. Cleaning up the house will be there. Those daily tasks that life throws at us nonstop, constantly, they'll be there. But we'll always have those kinds of things to do. But these moments with our kids, we can't get back. The time with our kids, we can't get back. So I don't know, maybe that's the challenge to us. Seize every opportunity. Cherish every moment. Make the most of it. Thank God every day that you have moments like that. And it is inevitable that one day, all of those moments, irregardless if you're making the most or not of them, it's inevitable that one day they'll become a memory. And I don't know, that thought just kind of hit me, kind of wrecked me a little bit. But the next thought I had was maybe on a less emotional note, maybe on more of a serious note. But we talk a lot about healing. We talk a lot about a healed version. Talk a lot about brokenness, and I talk a lot on this podcast about me being in a healed version, or walking into your healing. And I'm not saying that this is the case, what I'm about to talk about, but a thought did pop into my head. And I thought, we talk about being healed, And the misconception is that now you're fixed. You see, I don't think healed means fixed, right? And I think that's an issue, I think, with some people who are trying to heal from certain things, is they're looking for a fix. And unfortunately, it's not about being fixed. And so, I don't know, this thought just hit me that, like, being healed doesn't shield you from the brokenness creeping back up. You know, being healed doesn't mean that you've eradicated, at the core level, that you've eradicated whatever it was that you were broken about from your life. Being healed doesn't mean that you're now fixed and will never have to deal with whatever that issue is. Now, it'll look very different. This is what healed does mean. Healed means that now, when the situation comes up, now when whatever it is that caused your brokenness, whatever that is, whenever it comes back up and whenever it, peeks its ugly head out, that now you are ready to handle it, right? You recognize it. And instead of bowing down to it, instead of becoming a slave to it, after you recognize it, you don't believe the lie that it's telling you, but you fight it with the truth. You conquer it with the truth. You destroy it with the truth. You see, I think about this a lot. I think about, and again, I don't like cliches, right? I think I've said that before, that I don't like cliches. They're, I don't know. I think some of them are annoying, although some are really good, and I will use them from time to time. I don't know. I just don't like cliches. But there are a bunch of cliches around this topic, some of which I like, and one of them being, when Daniel, and this is from the Bible, when Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, God didn't remove the lions, right? He kept Daniel in the midst of the chaos. He kept Daniel in the midst of the danger. He kept Daniel in the midst of the suffering. And he didn't remove the lions, but he shut their mouths. And so he left Daniel in that situation, but he guarded him, he protected him, he provided for him. And so that's one of the cliches, or that's one of the stories or whatever that I like that is about this. Because what that tells me is that in our healed versions, it doesn't mean that we're not going to go through anything. It doesn't mean that we're not going to face anything. It doesn't mean that we're not going to encounter trials and tribulations and suffering and pain and loss and all that. It doesn't mean that now we've been, quote unquote, fixed from that. But our healed version now doesn't get involved in the old ways of thinking, right? Where the old ways of thinking, with our inner critic, would convince us of something that was a lie, and we would believe it as truth. The old way of thinking would cause us to get involved in unhealthy coping mechanisms. And it doesn't mean that we won't face these things, but now our healed version doesn't run to that, doesn't run to the unhealthy coping mechanism, doesn't believe the truth of the old thinking. It doesn't believe the lies that our inner critics are telling us. But our healed version will now combat that with the truth of what we know to be true because we're healed. And so we don't give in to temptation. Doesn't mean we're not tempted. We don't believe the lies. Doesn't mean they're not there. We don't feel like reverting back or retreating back into our old, unhealthy, toxic behavior and coping mechanisms. Doesn't mean they're not there and that we don't want to. It just means that now in our healed version, we know we don't have to. And we've replaced those things. We've replaced the lies with truth. We've replaced our unhealthy coping mechanisms, our toxic behaviors, with healthy coping mechanisms, healthy behaviors. We've replaced our old way of thinking with renewing of our mind, new way of thinking. And so I guess the thought just hit me that, sometimes when we think about people that are healed, or they say, I've been healed, or I'm healing, and I think a lot of times the expectation can be that they are now fixed and they don't deal with that anymore. They don't struggle with that anymore. They're not tempted by that anymore. And I just don't think that's the case. I think that stuff's still here. I think life still is life. It's still life's. Still throws at us all the temptations and all the triggers. And, if at the moment we were healed, we were fixed from all that, there wouldn't be any such thing as triggers, right? But there's still triggers. Now being healed just means I know how to appropriately act and think and behave and so on. So if I could, I guess, issue a challenge or some advice. If you are someone who is healing and you're on your healing journey, if you're someone who is healed from certain things, it could be behaviors, thoughts, actions, addictions. If you're someone who's healed from that or is currently healing, one, I would say, keep fighting. Don't expect that those things will go away. The temptations, the triggers, the things that pull you into the old ways of being. Don't expect that those things will be gone just because you heal. Expect that they'll be there. Plan for them to be there. Prepare for them to be there. Just know and believe that you're healed or you're healing. And so there's a different way to handle it. There's a different way to fight it. There's a different way to react. There's a different way to behave. There's a different way to think. There's a different way to be now that you're healed or healed. And that's simple. It's not easy. Because yes, it may be 100 times harder now that you're being intentional to not become a slave to whatever it was that caused your brokenness. And I guess the other side of that is if you are someone who is dealing with someone who's healing or been healed, right? If you interact with someone or you're in a relationship with someone or whatever the case may be, if you're in something with someone who is healing or been healed, you also have to have appropriate expectations. Because especially in a relationship, especially when it comes to relationships, right? If someone is healed or healing and you're the other person, you cannot expect that will never come up. You cannot expect that those things that caused the brokenness will just disappear. You can't expect that. That's an unrealistic expectation. It's an inappropriate expectation. And then what happens is you put that inappropriate, unrealistic expectation onto the other person. And it's obviously not met. It's obviously not going to be met because it can't be. It's not realistic. It's inappropriate. It doesn't even apply. And so it can't be met, so it's not going to be met. And then when that happens, you go down this whole other rabbit trail. And so I guess those thoughts were kind of swirling around in my head today. And I don't know that this is a normal format of my podcast or my episodes, but just wanted to share those thoughts with you. And I guess to the latter thought, sometimes I feel like that I put those inappropriate expectations on myself. Sometimes I put unrealistic expectations on myself. Like, I've healed from a lot of things, and I'm still healing, but I've healed from a lot of things. And there's evidence to that. That's how I know. If you ever wanted to get into any of that, I would love to talk to you about it. But still, even in my healing, even with things that I've been healed from for years, still, when something comes up, when a quote unquote trigger appears, something specific to whatever it was that caused my brokenness that I healed from, whenever that pops up, I have to fight against this mindset that, well, my expectation is that those would never pop up again. I'm healed from it. I should never have to deal with this again. And if I let myself entertain that, right, and if I give my attention to that, then all of a sudden I start to form, or I could start to form a perspective about myself, right? And that will obviously affect the way I think about myself, the way I view myself, the way I behave, right? And so I guess this is as much of a challenge to y'all as it is to me. But those do come up, right? Those triggers do appear, and they're going to. And as long as you expect the best and prepare for the worst, in your healing or in your healed version, you'll be ready, because they will pop up, and you'll be ready to behave, to act, to respond, to do whatever it is in your healed version or your healing version. So I don't know. I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud. I just wanted to share those thoughts with you and share my heart with y'all. That was a kind of a moment of vulnerability and transparency. I still, even being healed, I still get to feel in certain ways and have to combat those ways. And I don't think once you're healed that it's a one and done and cool, I'm fixed. It's nothing like that. It's a process. It's a daily process. That's why the Bible says that we have to die to ourselves daily. We have to pick up our crosses daily and follow Jesus. I think there's something to doing it daily, right? I think there's some real importance, and it matters that it's a daily practice. So y'all, thank you for sticking with me. I know I'm like walking up hills and stuff, so if I sound out of breath, I apologize. But thank you for bearing with me on this walk and being out here with me and letting me share my heart with y'all. I'm honored. Every time I record an episode, I'm honored that I get to share my heart. I'm honored that I get to share a glimpse of my heart. And I'm just honored that y'all allow me to do that. So thank y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all so much. Reach out. I say this every episode, and I'll probably continue to say it on every episode, because it really is my heart to connect with y'all. I want to connect with y'all. I don't have all the answers to everything. I know that. Part of it is I want to learn from y'all, right? The other part of it is my story may speak life into your story. And so I want to connect with you. Email me at unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Till next time, see you then.